Imagine for a moment, if you will, the open ocean. The waves, the seabirds, great sea creatures swimming by. The sky that stretches forever into the distance, the sun casting its glow across an endless expanse of water. Now I want to ask you a question. What's beneath your feet? If you're like me, it's probably a pirate ship. A mass of rigging and wood held together by a misfit gang of miscreants and ocean-bound thugs. The very romanticised version of 17th century piracy that exemplifies the dream of freedom that unfortunately we've never really been able to experience for ourselves. There had been pirate games before, but they never quite gave many of us the experience we were looking for. Hampered by gameplay or graphics, nothing quite scratched our piratical itch. Until, that is, a piece of driftwood with Assassin's Creed written on it drifted into view. This is many players' favourite entry into the series, as it deftly balances the classic Assassin's Creed story and gameplay with an enormous open ocean, bringing it all together into one impressive package. But how does it stack up now? Join me today as I find out whether it's everything we remember it being when we played it on release, or whether we look back on its sun-soaked ocean through rose-tinted glasses. This is Playing by Series, and today we're playing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. ARRRR! It doesn't take long after the opening section to notice that one of Assassin's Creed 4's biggest features is its incredible map. A beautifully realised version of the 17th century Caribbean, filled from top to bottom with stuff to do and an incredible range of curios, missions, side stories and treasures to discover as you sail through its storms and shallows. With this game they mastered the art of the open world, something they definitely struggled to do in the past. Previously, maps have been large but also largely populated with unexciting things to do. Assassin's Creed map clutter had been an issue through much of the Ezio trilogy, as the maps were filled with collectibles and side missions with nary a whiff of variety. Then in Assassin's Creed 3 we went the opposite way, as they gave a great expanse of nothing to explore with not very much to do within. Thankfully, you're never at a loss in Assassin's Creed 4, as this map is filled with an incredible variety of stuff to do. From whaling to diving, the range of extra activities is a sight to behold. And these aren't just extra versions of what you'll be doing in missions like the side activities of yore. These are extra experiences in and of themselves, showing a level of depth that you wouldn't have expected from entirely avoidable parts of the game. Whaling, for example, sees you hunting the various denizens of the sea, from small sharks to massive whales. A timing-based game of cat and mouse, you must time your harpoon tosses in order to take down your dangerous quarry, lest it destroys you and your boat first. In order to take on the bigger animals that would crush your boat in seconds, you have to upgrade your equipment, including your harpoons and hunting boat. There has been a lot of thought put into these activities, and it really shows. Diving too, for example, these are entirely new sections of map, with sharks and other predators that you and your very fleshy and presumably very delicious pirate have to avoid. Of course, a world map is not only as good as the activities you can find within. If traversing it is rubbish, you're not going to want to play. Thankfully, sailing your pirate ship feels amazing. Control is tight, but also takes some effort. You really feel like you're piloting tons of wood, canvas and cannon. You battle storms, careening into waves double the height of your ship, and cruise through rocky outcrops that threaten to rend you and your craft to shreds with one wrong move of the stick. All while your crew sings their shanties. You really feel a part of a pirate captain. This is a visceral experience, and one made all the more rewarding as the clouds part, the sun streams through as your crew cheers. Pirate ships weren't just made to sail through the sea peacefully, however. They were built to put fear into any ship unlucky enough to come within cannon range. Evidently, you're going to need to engage in a spot of sea-based villainy and plunder some ships for all their valuables. Gaze through your spyglass to find your target, and open the sails to close in on your unfortunate quarry. This is where we find Assassin's Creed 4's greatest achievement, the best ship-based combat to ever grace TV sets. Positioning your ship to get a full broadside of heavy cannon shot is challenging, but once you see those blazing cannonballs tear into a hull, sending splinters of wood high into the air, you can't just help but whoop with delight. There's an impressive range of ammunition on offer as well, and you're going to want to use and upgrade it if you want to take on the game's bigger ships and get the shiniest treasures. You're probably going to want to upgrade your ship anyway, if not only to make it look even cooler. You start with a tatty brig, but by the end your ship will be bristling with guns, coated with a layer of protective plating, and with an enormous ram strapped to the front. Now, you're going to need materials in order to get your ship ready for combat, and you'll find those materials within the cargo holds of ships sailing around the map. This gives purpose to your piracy beyond just wanting to engage in ship combat. I like to think of this as the vicious circle of piracy in Assassin's Creed 4. I want to fight ships, and I want to fight bigger ships, so I need to fight other ships to get the materials that mean I can fight the really big ships. It's great. Not everything in Shipland is ship-shape, however, and it's the return of something we'd hoped we'd never see again in an Assassin's Creed game. Stalking missions. Here, however, it's a ship-stalking mission, where you take your 60-foot-tall brig through restricted areas of sea, making sure not to rouse the suspicion of a whole fleet of Spanish gunboats that threaten to ruin your mission. Now, I don't much care for wandering through the streets on foot and following a person as quietly as possible, let alone an enormous wooden vessel that controls at low speed like the water below you were actually treacle. Not fun. They also make a reappearance in the foot-based sections of the game, as you guide lead assassin Edward through the streets of various Caribbean cities and ports. Just as annoying as ever, they take the form of that circle of sound that was introduced in the first game, and remains largely unchanged. Thankfully, however, these missions are few and far between, and the mission structure of the remaining missions is generally excellent. Assassinations are still a little restrictive, but otherwise fun, giving you your target and their location, and an opportunity to ruin their day with your wrist-mounted implements. The story these missions are a part of is, as usual, excellent. Still split, yes, but this time with a big difference. Desmond is gone. He is no more. Bereft of life, he is with us no longer. And I'm not going to lie, I howled with joy when I realised this. Instead, we now play the part of an unnamed game developer tasked with playing through the life of Edward Kenway in order to find content for a new video game. Along the way, you of course get wrapped up in the Templars and Assassins, and things take a turn from there. But it never overstays its welcome. Previously, the Desmond sections would stick around for just long enough to resent them, and pull you away from the past in an awkward, jarring manner. Here, you are pulled out, given some story, and then you can jump straight back to the past. It all feels as though they didn't really know what to do with the present-day sections of the game. They knew they had to be there, but with a distinct lack of Desmond, they were left scratching their heads with where to go next. Instead, we get a fairly forgettable hour or so set in the present, and I'm of two minds as to how I feel about it. While Desmond's story was boring and silly, it at least made an effort, giving us a fairly interesting final act. And this is neither here nor there, with an ending loosely derived from the plot, a villain that is comically daft, and cameos galore from characters we don't really want to remember. Equally, however, it's not too long, and while it feels pointless, it's more of that sci-fi melodrama I loved from the previous game. So you can see why I'm divided. Edward Kenway's story set in the past, however, is a magnificent triumph. Every bit as swashbuckling and over-the-top as a pirate story should be, with all the right appearances from history's biggest ocean-bound bastards. It gives us a cracking main character and some fantastic comic moments. Kenway is sympathetic, funny, and extremely Welsh. He's completely unique, feeling different from the assassins that have come before him. It helps that this is one of the best vocal performances we've ever received in an Assassin's Creed game, and it makes the game feel that bit more polished in the story department. This is a twisty tale, however. While it doesn't necessarily feel confusing, it does become a little too strangled in its own narrative strands. There's just a couple too many characters, and you may need a notepad in order not to get lost with some of the betrayal. It ends well enough, however, and closes the story satisfactorily, if not a little unceremoniously. The world that these characters occupy is gorgeous. This was the first Assassin's Creed game to release on the then next generation hardware, and as such took some much needed graphical updates. Character models look extremely impressive, losing the clay doll features we had in the previous game, looking now like actual people. The lighting is to die for, and the textures finally saw the much needed update that they drastically needed. The jackdaw looks smashing, not only because you'll have upgraded it, but because an incredible amount of effort seems to have gone into picking out details in the smallest places aboard her decks and rigging. This was the next generation Assassin's Creed we had been promised for so long, and it actually felt like a big jump in the series, rather than a weird lateral step right and a slight update. That's not to say that some things didn't remain behind, however, things that give Assassin's Creed games their identity. The climbing still relies on the same system as all the games that came before it, and honestly at this point, it really needs some updating. Especially given that you'll be using it more than you might expect. The towns and ports of the Caribbean have more vertical real estate to play with, and the game's fort needs you to climb everywhere in order to get to the objectives. It's still the trigger, and you'll still find yourself leaping off buildings just when you least want to, and that's an issue. After 6 mainstream releases, the climbing by this point should feel fluid and effortless, but it just feels a little bit like a chore at this point. The combat as well remains the same, it's just too easy. And while it looks cooler than ever, with Edward's twin cutlasses flying through the air to connect with a soldier's neck, the button combos and instant kills just suck all the fun out of the idea of being a cutlass-wielding madman. It makes you feel powerful, yes, but it also is getting really aged by this point. And it really shouldn't, because some returning things have been immeasurably improved. The hunting, for example, returns from the previous game, but it's been given a purpose. The hunting experience itself has been streamlined and made much less of an exercise in pointlessness, and more useful in that you use the materials you gain to upgrade Edward in meaningful ways, giving him more ammo capacity or more health. You can also, of course, sell these materials in the new trading game, which is the most in-depth money-making scheme that Assassin's Creed has ever seen. You can add ships that you pirate to your fleet and use them to secure tradeways which you can send cargo along to make money. Again, as with all these money-making things in the series, it soon becomes pointless as you amass an incredible wealth, but this time it's actually quite fun. There are these fun little turn-based RPG-style battle screens as you secure a trade route, and waiting to see if your cargo makes it to its destination is at least somewhat exciting. All in all, Assassin's Creed 4 is the best game in the series so far. I mean, how couldn't it be? You're a pirate, for goodness sake. Yes, okay, the combat and climbing really need an update, but oh goodness, is this ever an incredible experience. The ship, the sea, the graphics, it's all just so good. If you've already played it, play it again, it's still fantastic. And if you've never played it, I'm begging you, play it. There is no case of rose-tinted spectacles here, folks, and I couldn't be happier. This has been another episode of Playing by Series. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been Matt, and this is The Den. If you want to have a chat about Assassin's Creed, leave us a little comment below, and if you liked this retrospective, give us a quick like and subscribe if you aren't already. Stay tuned for another ocean-themed video review on Thursday, and the next instalment of Playing by Series next Monday. And in the meantime, stay safe.